Welcome to this chair yoga practice. We're going to be moving through the body, synchronizing the breath, the mind, and the body so that you can unwind tension, integrate the hemispheres of your brain and body, and find your inner place of wholeness and ease once again. Okay, let's go to practice. As we begin with a comfortable seat, let me let you know that the chair that I'm sitting in squeaks. And in chair yoga, really any chair or surface that you feel stable enough to sit in is actually fine. So this practice can be quite portable. You could take it to your office and use a chair that doesn't have wheels on it. You can do it in your home, in your dining room chair. You can do it in a folding chair, which is what I'm using. You could do it on the chair on the back deck if you needed to. But I do recommend that when you're practicing chair yoga, you're sitting on the front edge of your chair because your pelvis is going to have more options there versus sitting farther back and then slouching into your seat. So sit on the front edge of your chair and lengthen your spine up and release your hands down to your lap. Go ahead and close your eyes so your attention is going to go inward and downward. We begin yoga practice by helping the mind to settle so that it's not an interference with the body during yoga. The kinds of interferences that the mind could make during yoga practice are things like judgments, the habit of forcing yourself to do something beyond your capacity, the habit of shying away from your capacity, the habit of mental distraction where you're not actually listening to your body, the habit of daydreaming, mental habit of boredom. Those kinds of mental habits that are interferences prevent you from having the full benefit of your yoga practice. And since you've taken this time, we want to make it as beneficial as possible. So as you close your eyes and you drop into your body and your breath, it may help to start by simply noticing where your feet are on the ground beneath you. And if you send your thinking mind down through that long channel of the nervous system into your heels and toes, it's kind of the farthest place from the head, which is where most people think of their mind or their thought factory is in their head. So let's send this habit mind down to the most distal place. Connect with the ground beneath you. You might lift and spread the toes and let the toes start exploring the surface that your feet are resting on. In my case, my heels are on my yoga mat, which is one texture, and my toes are on the rug in this room, which is a different texture. So take notice not only of the ground, but the textures. You might also observe the temperature, if there's a temperature change between your feet and the floor. As you notice these things, begin to breathe down into your footprints so that your mind, your breath, and your body, this kind of sacred trinity, is all connected in one destination. And right now, that's simply the feet. As you breathe into your feet, we recognize there are no lungs in the toes, but there is a sense of being able to send the breath to a sensation, in this case, the toes and heels. So as you do that, start making a more consistent pace for your breathing. The inhale can balance the exhale, and exhale balances inhale. On the inhale, we're receiving, bringing in prana or energy, vitality. On the exhale, we're releasing, whatever is ready to be shed, to be set aside even temporarily. So the inhalation is like our dedication to our health and well-being. And the exhale is the surrender of that which would impede our health or our well-being. Abhyasa, dedication. Vairagyam, surrender. Let's give ourselves the full possibility of benefiting from this practice. You can join your hands together in Anjali Mudra. And we'll chant the invocation. Sahana vavatu, sahanao bunaktu, sahavidyang karavavahai. Tejasvina vadhi tamastu, ma vidvesha vahai. May our time together be protective, nourishing, strong. May it help us to remember that which is luminous or tejas, and to overcome that which causes concealment or darkness. And may we not feel impatient with ourselves or each other along the way. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Savidyang Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidveshavahai. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Savidyang Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidveshavahai. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Savidyang Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidveshavahai. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. You may bow your head to your heart. Release your hands. Open your eyes as you're ready to. Okay, with your exhale, you may bow your head to your heart. Release your hands. Open your eyes. The chair yoga practice ideally is something that's accessible to anyone who wants to enter the practice of yoga and feels like they need an adaptation in order to get started. Or for some people, this is the way they practice yoga because perhaps they are part of a program that we used to run called Backbones Yoga, which is yoga for those with spinal cord injuries, or Parkinson's or MS. Those students also benefit from chair yoga practices. We may benefit from this practice if you're recovering from a surgery and you can't put full weight on your feet, knees, hips for some reason. Right? So this is to adapt our practice, but not to modify it away from the essence of yoga, to still have the full experience of yoga. So as you're sitting in the chair that you're in, you're on the front of the chair, place your hands out over your knees we're going to undulate the spine between the inhalation, which is asking for vitality and health and well-being, and then the exhalation, which is a time when we're releasing that which would be an obstacle to our health and well-being, whether it's a mental interference or a physical residue of some kind. So we'll inhale, bring the spine into cow pose, lift your heart, open your throat, look up. And then exhale and curl your spine down into cat pose, where the back of the body rounds like a parachute. Inhale, roll forward and up. Exhale, curl down. And as you rotate into the inner pose from the outer pose, as we cycle through these two things, notice the feeling tone in your body and your mind. On the exhale, we're going inward and downward. Notice what that's like for you. On the inhale, we go forward and upwards, and you can also observe what that's like for you. And exhale, curl down and in. Give a good squeeze to the lower belly to squeeze out the end of the exhalation. As you inhale, roll the pubic bone down and go one vertebrae at a time to raise up through your heart, your collarbones, and your throat. And then exhale and begin that curling inward and downward also from the tailbone. Let's do this twice more. And exhale, follow at your own breath pace. And one more time. And exhale to curl in and down. And then rise up to a simple seat. And let's notice if your mind more easily drops down through the body to touch your footprints. Is there any less mental static from just a couple moments of breathing and moving mindfully? Now we're going to include alternating the arms to rise up. So any kind of cross hemisphere practice that we do is really helpful for the two hemispheres of your brain to re-collaborate with each other. We often become very left brain shifted, more in our heads and less in our bodies. So as you inhale to go up, I'm going to ask you to raise your left arm. And then we'll exhale to curl down and both hands go to the knees. Then inhale, raise up through your right arm. And exhale to curl down and in towards your cat pose. It's a full cat pose. Follow the inhale, pubic bone down, spine, heart, chest, throat, left arm up. Exhale, curl down. Inhale, raise your right arm. And exhale, roll down. And as you're raising one arm at a time, notice if one side feels like it has greater ease than the other side. That's really common. We don't notice it with judgment. We simply notice it as information from the body. One more time, inhale, right arm. And then exhale, curl down. And roll up to your seat. Rest your hands in your lap. Just check and see if your mind has any greater access to the present moment and to the sensations of your feet on the ground. Not because your feet are uniquely sensational, but because the feet are that place furthest from the thinking mind right now. So it gives you contact with the ground, contact with the present moment. You could imagine your thought factory is like a radio in another room and the volume is going down back there. You can't quite hear it. Okay, now we'll use the hands and arms together. So interlace your fingers. Place the heels of the hands to stretch forward. Now, it's possible that your wrists are a little stiff or your elbows don't straighten like this, or your fingers are going to feel the stretch. So wherever you experience the sensations, that is information from your body and it's valid. Your pose does not need to mimic my pose. But in the expression of this pose, as it goes through a body of mine, which is 35 years of yoga practice, the arms raise up like this. Now yours might be that your elbows are a little bit bent, or your shoulders aren't yet ready for that full extension. So do the best that you can with your body in its current state today. And then exhale and press out to the sides of the room. Whatever that reach is for you, reach back to hold the arms of the chair or the legs of the chair. Roll the shoulders back and squeeze your shoulder blades on the upper back. Look up. And then exhale and look down. Sweep the arms forward. Interlace the fingers. Inhale, push the heels of the hands forward and up. Rise up and look up. Exhale, press out. Modify any of the practice to suit your capacity in this moment. Inhale, roll the shoulders back, give a good squeeze. If you're able to, please look up. And then exhale, press the arms down, round the spine, reach forward, look inward. Interlace the fingers, inhale again, full circle. Exhale, as you press out, picture clearing your mind from judgments and assessments about yourselves or others. And then inhale, roll the shoulders back, give a good squeeze, look up. And exhale, reach the arms forward, curl the spine into cat pose. Last one, inhale. And exhale. Hold your chair. Inhale, squeeze the shoulder blades, look up. And exhale, reach forward, come inward. Palms together, inhale to the heart. Acknowledge your efforts. They are efforts in a good direction, and sometimes we just simply say our toes are pointing in a good direction. And even if it's just 2 toe points in that direction, it's 2 more toes that are not pointing the other way. So whatever your efforts are able to be, acknowledge that. And you can drop your hands to your lap and notice once more if your mind has less static, if that radio broadcast is a little bit lower in volume. Are you able to connect to your feet more easily? So we're going to add to the sequence. One of the things about moving and breathing in synchronicity is that you're harmonizing between your brain and your body and your breath. So you are uniting these things, like braiding them together, the breath, the movement, and the mind. And the word yoga means to unite or to yoke together. So we're going to be braiding these things together. It has a very powerful effect on your brain, because in order to supervise or chaperone this experience for yourself, you have to use this part of your brain up here, the neocortex, the part that goes offline when you're lost in habit, whether that's compulsive eating or compulsive working or compulsive scrolling. This part of the mind also goes offline when we're self-medicating or self-sedating, or any other time when we're really distracted into a fight, flight, freeze, or submit reaction. So we're using the resources of the breath and the body, which are accessed from the brainstem. And therefore, between the upper and the lower brain, we're calming the middle brain, this part right here between your ears. This is the part called the limbic brain, which is the part that goes into craving and aversion and tends to swing us on this pendulum of wanting and not wanting. So in order to synchronize, we're going to add another thing to our routine. So we've got this movement here, as you were just doing. When the arms go wide this time, we're going to rotate, and you'll put one hand to the upper back of the chair and one hand across your knee. Please resist the urge to tip your knee into center, and rather keep your legs as a stable base. So as you're twisting, this knee might push out into your hand, and your hand may press gently against your knee. This is a mutual action between these 2 points. Okay, then we'll come back up and we'll go to the other side. Okay, clasp your hands, press them down, and let's begin. Inhale. Exhale, push out and rotate to your right. Stay for the inhalation. Exhale, rotate to center, push the hands forward, curl the spine into cat pose. Inhale, raise up. Exhale, stretch out, rotate to your left. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, rotate to center, clasp the hands and push forward as you round your spine. Inhale, forward and up, look up. Consider the possibility of a little bit of optimism. Exhale, rotate as you twist, release any tension in the lower belly to support yourself to have a full twist. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, come around to face forward, round into cat pose, press the hands forward. Inhale, rise up. There's some optimism there. Let's exhale, rotate. Twisting poses are also a time when we can release tension or squeeze tension out. So welcome the next inhale to come in as fully as you're able to without grasping. And then exhale, turn to center, push forward one more time. And inhale, rise up last time. Exhale, both arms wide, come back down to hold the sides of the chair. Squeeze the shoulders back, inhale, look up. And exhale to release, rest your hands in your lap. You might be noticing that your arms get tired in doing this, like the arms actually require some support, muscular support. We don't want that to be tension in the upper shoulder blade or the neck. But drop your shoulders as you drop your hands into your lap. And from where you're sitting, please pick up your right foot and cross your right ankle over your left knee. Now, there are times where people cannot cross the ankle over the knee for a variety of reasons, like they might have just had a hip replacement and they're not ready yet, or maybe they have stiff hips and they haven't done this in a long time. In that case, you can take a couple of blocks and stack them, and you can ask someone to place the ankle like this. All right, so you get some of the benefit. One thing I would caution about is that we don't want the ankle to be sickled or rounded like that. You do want it to be straight so that your ankle is stable to support your knee, to support your hip. So this is a variation that you can choose. You can also choose this. Whatever you're choosing, go ahead and rest your hands on your ankle if you're up on the knee. If your foot is down on the blocks, rest your hands in your lap. And try not to use the hands to push on your leg or to make a difference manually or forcefully. But from the inside of your right hip joint now, imagine opening the door of the hip. You're going to press your knee down from the outer hip muscles. It might not go very far. It might feel like it's not responding very much at all, but I'd like you to visualize that in your hip, you can open the hip joint like a door. Maybe the door has squeaky hinges or stiff hinges, but press down and raise up through your spine. Breathe in. And if it's appropriate for you and your body has a kind of yes to it, you can come forward with the torso. You may start feeling a lot stronger sensation in your right hip. And this is where listening to the sensation is a chance to have a conversation with your body. So long as the breath and the mind come to braid together with your body and it feels like it's harmonious, you can come into the sensation. But if you start sensing that you're pushing or that your body is resisting, that's a time to re-navigate, to back off from the pose slightly, to resume a quality of kindness with your mind and your breath. Perhaps to relax your tongue or your jaw, or to consider releasing the fingers or not tensing the abdomen. And so as you connect with the sensations in your right hip joint, What you might do is start with the level of acknowledging them. Just say, hi, sensations. I know that you're there. Don't evaluate them and don't critique them or judge them. And as you acknowledge the sensations, then you can breathe into them and offer a kind of nourishment or reassurance or even kindness. There's no sensation that your body produces as a way to get back at you. It's just not in the intelligence of the body to behave that way. So if we take these sensations as little information gifts, then we can respond as if we just received a gift of information from the right hip. Your pose may slightly deepen, breath to breath. We'll use the next inhale to rise up to sitting. So you can follow your breath pace, of course. And if you ever want to stay longer in a pose, you can do that. Or if I stayed too long for you, you can always come up, take a break, and then go back into the pose. You now will cross the left ankle over the right knee. And as you do that, make the ankle firm. So something that you'll notice about yourself, and you can see it on me actually, when I cross my right ankle over my left knee, you'll see that this knee drops down actually pretty well. That's part of my structure here. And then when I cross my left ankle over my right knee, it's different. This knee is up higher. Okay? And so perhaps that's a musculoskeletal tightness. Perhaps it's actually a bony arrangement that my body has, and it's not going to get more on this side and doesn't need to. But if it's muscular and I can release some of the tension in the hip joint, I may be able to level out my hips a little bit closer. Let's press with the outer left hip so the knee goes down. So what I'm pointing to there is we don't have an agenda that each side is ultimately going to match or be identical. We do have to respect that we have differences, and sometimes those are biomechanical and sometimes they're structural. A structural difference might be the shape of the hip socket, the size of the head of the hip. So we don't fight against what is structural, but we live in relationship with it. So as you're pressing your knee down and you greet these sensations, start reassuring your body and the sensations that you're first here to acknowledge them. And then you can appreciate the sensations. And if it's appropriate for you to come a little forward, and you'll know that because your breathing is still warm and kind, and you can start coming forward. If it's not appropriate, stay upright. If everything feels like you've just gotten into a hot bath that is too hot to sit in, then back the pose up. Right? Don't strain yourself for the benefit of yoga. It won't be a benefit. So whatever your sensations are, just know that you're not likely alone. Somebody else is also having sensations that you could have some camaraderie about. Okay. Breathe in into the left hip. And exhale. And use the next inhale, or when you're ready to, you can inhale and rise up to sitting and place your left foot back on the floor. And place your feet so they're hip distance apart. Notice the after echo of the pose. If your mind can kind of drop down a few notches from preoccupation, pose to pose, if the mind drops down and down and down, there's a place of deep rest that we come to at the end of the practice. Okay, so now we're going to use the chair in a standing position, so please rise up to standing. And I'm going to ask you to stand to the side of your chair. You can place the upper back of the chair to point towards you. Like this. Yeah. And then turn to face the chair, and as you place your hands on the upper back of the chair, reach back into an L shape. We're going to call this countertop dog pose or desktop dog pose, because as you step back like this could be the kitchen counter, this could be your desk, this could be the upper back of the dining room chair, or a chair that doesn't have wheels on it, such as the one that I'm using. This could also be a park bench out in nature somewhere, or the branch of a tree. So as you're reaching back, press into your heels and your toes. Encourage your breath to go deeply into the lower belly. Remind yourself when we were sitting and we did the cat pose, we squeezed the lower belly a little bit. And during your exhale, you can practice completing the exhale by toning the lower abdomen. And exhale one more time. Press down against the upper back of the chair, the kitchen counter, the park bench, whatever it is. Lift your torso, and keeping your left heel pointing straight back, step your right foot forward. And now you're probably going to feel your left calf muscle stretching. You can transition to your forearms if you like. And as you're coming forward, think of reaching back into your left heel. So there's your footprint, and your calf muscles might be tight for a number of reasons. Can be many, many things. But for example, with both MS and Parkinson's, we do tend to have tighter calf muscles. If we've been sedentary, we'll have tighter calf muscles. If you have a dilemma in your hips and you've been limping around, not walking from your hip socket, but from your toes or heels, you probably have tight calf muscles. Doesn't make you a bad person. It's not a judgment at all, what I'm saying. It's just some ideas about why you might have tight calf muscles right now. Or maybe you went for a big hike and you haven't done that recently, so you're feeling it in the calves. Speaking of calves and cats, cat pose, kitty came. Okay, place your hands on the upper back of the chair. Press down against the upper back of the chair. Pick up your front foot and float it back to meet your left foot. Reach back and notice now if it feels to you like the left calf muscle gets a little bit warmer or maybe a little bit more alive, take a deep breath in. And then as you exhale, pick up your chest and heart, look forward, step your left foot forward, keep the right foot pointing straight on, and come into a stretch on the right calf muscle. And you want to be reaching back through the right heel down towards the floor. As you reach back, take the tailbone down. So for some of you, your calf muscle is tight and then you're lifting your tailbone up like this. So take the tailbone down. There you go. Yeah. And just like the hips, we're going to breathe into these sensations and acknowledge them first. Notice if you're clenching your teeth or wincing like you got into the bathtub and it's way too hot. And if that's the case, you need to be backing away from the pose a little bit, make it more gentle in a small way, incrementally back up until there's a breathable experience for yourself. Let's notice if you're pressing a little more into your big toe or your pinky toe, and see if you can include the right big toe as you press down. And place your hands on the upper back of the chair, press down against the chair, and as you inhale, lift your left foot and step back. And then keeping the left foot in the back position, one more time, step your right foot forward. Now this time, as you step forward, if you look at your 2 feet, you're kind of in a position like you're going cross-country skiing, right? So the back foot here and the front foot are both pointing straight ahead. Take the back heel, pick it up, and rotate so your heel points in slightly. It can be slight. And then rotate your hips around to face forward. Good. And go ahead and let's keep the left hand on the left hip so you have a sense of where's your left hip pointing. And then begin to bend your right knee. And what you might be discovering is not only is your left calf muscle tight, maybe your hip flexors are also tight. And the word tight is not a judgment word, it's just a description word. So breathe in. Let your mind reach down into your left footprint. Press into the left big toe, the other 4 toes, the inner heel, the outer heel. Give a little squeeze to your left butt muscle here on the back side. So you're going to stabilize your hip joint with that. And as both hips point forward, if you have your balance, sweep the arms out to the side. If you need to hold on to the chair with one hand, let's put the left hand forward. And then you can inhale, raise your right arm. It's a cross crawl pattern here. The right arm is up, the left arm is down. You are also welcome to raise both arms if you can keep your balance. If you're still developing your balance, then keep the left fingertips lightly close to the chair and maintain a smooth and steady breath. Keep your eyes focused but not hardened. If your balance is established and your feet are grounded, you're welcome to raise your gaze up above the horizon. And then as you exhale, sweep the arms out to the side. Imagine yourself like a sail on a ship. And then exhale, bring your palms together at your heart. Touch the upper back of the chair. And as you press against the chair, float your right foot back to meet your left foot. Place the feet so they're hip distance apart again. And breathe in. And then pick up the left foot and step forward. So you're in that cross-country ski parallel tracks position for a moment here. Then pick up the right heel. You can look back here. Turn it in slightly. Just a small angle. And then begin to bend your left knee. You might take your right hand to your right hip to encourage that hip to face forward. Even though we turned the back foot in slightly with the heel, we kind of want to keep both headlights on the car pointing in the same direction, the direction that we're going. And so you might notice your right calf, maybe your right hip flexors. Let's tone the right butt. So if you can squeeze the muscles on the back of the hip, it sends a message to the muscles on the front of your hip, and that message is called reciprocal muscle inhibition. So the back side, when it tones, invites the front side to open or to release. If you'd like to keep your balance with your right fingers on the chair, go ahead and do so. And open the left arm out to the side. And then inhale, raise your left arm. Perhaps you'll raise both arms. But if your balance is still under remodel right now, if you're still working on your balance, then by all means, keep the right fingertips on the chair. Notice the strength of the legs, the smoothness of the breath, the focus of your eyes and your mind. Let's breathe in one more time as you reach up. And then exhale, float the arms wide like a sail on a ship, or only float the left arm wide if your right hand is on the chair. And then place both hands on the upper back of the chair. Press down against it, shift your hips back, pick up the left foot and float it back to land next to your right foot. And then let's roll the spine up, rise up and take a stance in mountain pose. So you can stand so your feet are hip distance apart. And I'm going to take the texture of my rug to stand on because it has a nice feeling. It's just a different change from the yoga mat. So place the feet so they're hip distance apart. If you can keep your balance, please close your eyes and sense your mind going down and down and down to connect to your footprints. There's no particular breathing right now, just resting. Okay, and so perhaps your mind feels a little bit more connected to the present moment. That is my sincere hope. Let's turn this chair around. And we're going to come down to the floor. And for some of you to get down to the floor, I want to give a little strategy for that. So if you've had a knee replacement or a hip replacement, it's difficult to get down to the floor because of the pressure on the knees or the difficulty with the hips. I'd like you to start practicing first that you could hold the edge of a chair and roll the knees down and then pick them back up, that you can get that first part of the journey, right? So you're going to be strengthening your upper body and your abdominal muscles to do just this much. We haven't bent the elbows. We're just coming back up from there. Okay, when you're ready to go further down to the floor, it may help if the floor is raised to meet you. So let's say that I need the floor to be at that height right there. So in that case, I'm going to take a bolster from my shelf because I have one. You can use a couch cushion. You can use a couple of blankets. I'll put a bolster and a blanket so you can see that. The benefit of the bolster or the blankets or the couch cushion, if you've had a knee replacement, is really important because it's painful for the kneecap to touch the floor. So if you keep the elbow straight and you come down, you put the shins on the blanket, right? Like this, the knees are not on the blanket. Okay, and then we have to come down without over bending the knees because for some of us, that's going to be disallowed. So you turn to the side and then you're coming to put your hips on the blankets. I just made that little switch. Notice that I had to use my blocks and my abdominal strength to do that. That's one reason that we do those little miniature push downs. They're not really push-ups, but it's training your arm strength and your abdominal strength to make the transition. Okay, now here we are. We actually want to be lying down with the legs up on the chair seat. So if you'll go like this, so you're sitting, okay, and then we're going to come onto the left outer hip. Again, you're going to use your arm strength. We come down and lie on the side before you lie on your back. That is important because if you try to put your hips on these blankets and then lie backwards, you could fall backwards. Instead of just lying backwards, you could tumble backwards, which is not what we want you to do. And then we're going to put the shins up on the seat of the chair. Now these little blankets here, they could stay so long as the pelvis pubic bone is either level with your hip bones or a little bit higher. You don't want these to stay if it's making your back arch. That would not be helpful. Okay, so once you know your position, we're going to have a little closing pose like this. Closing pose means it's the last pose in the sequence, but it's actually an opening pose for the hips. So put the soles of the feet together on the front edge of your chair. Drop the knees out to the side. If the chair is too far away from you, it's going to feel uncomfortable, potentially in the inner groin, but also in the lower back. We want the chair to be close enough that when you put your legs on it, your knee right here will be supported. There you go. See if the breath can find its way into the pelvic basin here. Invite the mind to slow down as your breath makes it into the lower belly. You've dedicated yourself to a practice and you've made it this far, so that's an act of courage and commitment. A gesture of kindness for yourself. As we continue to release tension in the body, it's a practice of surrendering that which is not working for us anymore, or that which we no longer want to be carrying. Now we'll bring the knees up to center and take your legs out over the chair seat. You can either put your feet through the back opening of the chair, or sometimes it's quite nice, so long as your knees are supported, you can put your feet on the upper back of the chair. It's also nice to cover up with a blanket if you find yourself needing that. And this is the most important pose in the whole sequence, because this is the pose of integration and resolution. So now your body integrates the practice and the new learnings, and it continues to resolve tension. Your body and brain are also doing an integration process with the brain, so that each hemisphere of the brain is going to have its sort of right-sized influence in your day-to-day life. Allow your breathing to become softer and smoother, perhaps more inward. And as you rest, you might just give your mind the assignment of gently noticing where your upper arms make contact with the ground. Those are sensations happening in the present moment. And they're generally speaking a bit neutral. Simply the upper arm, right side, left side, resting against the floor. Yoga practice includes helping the mind to know how to focus on something simple and tangible in the present moment, without judgment, without narrative. We're simply resting that mental thought factory and taking refuge from incessant inner chatter. Moment to moment, we simply rest. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing missing, simply resting. Notice that parts of your body get a little heavier with relaxation. You can include relaxing the space between your eyebrows, and at the hinge of your jaw, the muscle of the tongue. Now the quality of your mind after a few minutes of stillness. Just what's happening with your breath and with your body. And you can lightly wiggle your toes, your fingers. Please bend your knees so your feet come to the front of the chair. If you're still on the bolsters, when you roll down to the side, remind yourself that it's downhill. You can bring the knees over to the left. Use your right hand to help slow down the roll of the knees. And press yourself up to sitting. Now you could choose to sit on the floor, cross-legged. And if you're recovering from something like surgery, you can sit cross-legged with your blocks. If you'd like to go back up to your chair for sitting, and you're wondering how to get up from the floor, one way to do that is to set. So I used to teach, as I said, classes for people with spinal cord injuries. This is one way that they got back into their chairs. They put a hand on the chair and a hand on the floor, and they would push up and then use both hands to come back up to the chair. So that is an option of how to get back up to your chair. You can stay down, you can be up, whatever you prefer. And then rest your hands in your lap, whichever you've chosen to do. Come up to sit. This is a really important transition moment in your practice because the mind has the chance to come into cohesion and kindness, present. And please raise your hands to your heart. Hope, of course, that your practice is nourishing and supportive of you, and you've had the feeling of dedicating to your well-being and also surrendering that which would obscure your well-being. So these two intentions come together now in the hands meeting at the heart. Thank you very much for sharing your practice. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for this chair yoga practice. I hope this has been helpful to you and also nourishing for you. I was leading this class also during a yoga therapy training. We train yoga therapists in both the physical medicine of yoga and the mental well-being of yoga. So you got to practice alongside of their methodology, and I hope you found it interesting and intriguing, and once again, that it was beneficial to you. If the practice did help you, please don't forget to click the like button. If you have questions or comments, I'd love to see those down below the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That does help me to keep producing content for you. And if you're interested in training programs, please check out the URL here along the bottom of the screen. See you next time.